So I would like to welcome Dr. Mary Tipton. She is board certified in pediatrics and internal medicine. She has over 2 decades of experience in primary care and private practice. She is the owner of Blossom Health, which is a unique membership-based service which allows patients personal, convenient, and comprehensive care. We are excited to have her here with us today, and I will let her take it from here.
Hello, happy Tuesday, October 14th to you. Like Sabrina said, thanks for the introduction. My practice is in West Jordan, Blossom Health, and we'll tell you a little bit more kind of throughout the presentation how it's different than the direct or usual primary care insurance-based practice. So a little bit more about me. Like she said, I'm a double-boarded physician. That means I went to 2 different residencies. So I'm actually a board-certified pediatrician, but internal medicine as well. Internal medicine is a specialist for adults, which you may not know. So basically, I do all ages. I did work for 18 years in an insurance-based practice in South Jordan, and then 2024, so about a year, almost a year and a half ago, I could no longer accept the short appointment times, the conveyor belt type medicine situation, the long waits that my patient has to get to me, the fact that they could only talk about one thing per visit, and the copays, and I could go on and on. So I left the insurance-based practice to do the direct primary care practice. I was born and raised in Alaska. I did go to medical school here at the University of Utah, and I have 4 children. So I am immensely qualified, I will tell you, not just professionally, but personally, because I have, as you can see in this picture from a recent trip, basically 4 teenagers, preteen, young adult, and then 2 teenagers, and it is always an adventure. It is so hard to parent teenagers, but so rewarding. So I'll try to give you a little bit of tips from that. Also in Blossom Health, I'll just tell you, it's a membership type model. So one of the things that frustrated me so much taking care of teenagers, I'll just go to our, is that they're so complex, and they exist within this straddling this world between their being a child and also wanting to be an adult and wanting independence. And so when you interview them in the office, you really need to see them like with their parent, but then by themselves, and then often the parent by themselves, and then back together again. And that all takes a long time. Like, to do a really good job of evaluating a teenager in practice with like mental health or substance abuse or behavior challenges takes basically a full hour. In my practice, because patients pay a monthly membership fee and I don't bill insurance, and I work for the patients, and they can just, instead of the insurance company, like I have a lot more flexibility. So I have longer appointment times and smaller panel. So I am able to do that in direct primary care. And I think it's so essential. It's really not going to get a good history if you're just talking to the teenager without, with the parent there. So anyway, why this topic matters: puberty. It's a wild ride, a roller coaster. There's rapid physical, emotional, and mental changes. Now, people often ascribe these crazy behaviors to hormones. Hormones is part of it, but your environment, your relationships, the situation that the child and adults are in matters a lot. And understanding some of this, I assume your parents, I mean, we were all teenagers once, but some of us are parents of teens or will be. Maybe you take care of teenagers in a school setting. We're just going to go over some of the ways that you can help them not just survive, but thrive through the teenage years. So overview of the presentation. First of all, just hormonal changes. What is actually happening on a molecular level? What are the keywords and hormones that we need to be learning about? And then how do those hormones affect behaviors? Because that's what we're dealing with. Like when you're dealing with an obstinate teen who is telling you you're wrong and they're not going to clean their room and it doesn't matter, and you're having a fight about it, I mean, the hormones might be raging, but what you're really seeing and annoyed about is not their LH or their estrogen level, it's their dirty room and their failing grades. So behavior is what gets us. What is the progression that's normal during the development of a teen and young adult? And then how can parents and teachers help teens? And when should you call the pediatrician? Because that's what we're here, is to help, but we're often like 3rd, 4th, 5th line, but there are some warning signs that you should know. So first of all, the hormonal changes, puberty, it's a period of transition, right? You start out without really any significant levels of sex hormones. When you're born, there's some during development, but very, very, very low levels compared to puberty. And so you have spikes of those. It's not involves a physical and also emotional transition. It starts in the brain. So the brain, which is the hypothalamus, that part of the brain controls the pituitary gland, which releases some hormones that trigger downstream the gonads. So that's ovaries in girls, testicles in boys, and the gonads will then release some sex hormones that start this process. And if everything's working right, the brain to the gonads, it starts in girls between age 8 and 13. That's a big window, and boys approximately 9 to 14. So the hormones that I just mentioned, the gonadotropins, the ones that start in your head and are produced up there in the pituitary, are the LH, which is the luteinizing hormone, and the FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone. So both of those are the ones that are going downstream to trigger the actual gonads or the ovaries and testicles. And hormones, as you can see from the picture, it's just a chemical. It's released within an organism, and it's affecting cells in another part of the organism. So it's a signaling mechanism. It's like your thermostat sends a signal to the furnace, which is in another room, and then the furnace starts making heat. So the growth hormone and the thyroid hormones are also affected. Those come from different areas of the brain, and but they're also changed in puberty. So let's talk about girls. They may start out with some breast buds even earlier than 8, but those breast buds will just stay as buds until actual puberty. And then also the main trigger, or sorry, the main signal of, or physical finding of puberty that means true puberty is pubic hair. So you first have the estrogen and progesterone rising. Like I said, breast development is like your first thing, but you know it's true puberty when you see pubic hair. And so sometimes people will bring in their girls, often overweight, and say like, oh, they have boobs, like what's going on? And then we check for if there's true signs of puberty. So obviously after the pubic hair, it's been there for a couple years, you're gonna get menstruation because the ovaries and the other sex organs have developed further. You get redistribution of fat. So you never have don't have your scrawny, thin, kind of pre-pubertal appearance. A lot of times then there'll be a different redistribution of that fat. Growth spurts, of course, those hormones lead to acne and mood changes. And as we know in girls, there's cycles of hormone fluctuation. Not so much true in boys. They do have like a daily spurts of testosterone and stuff, but the women have cycles, and once they kind of get established, it's about 28 days. The boys' hormone is testosterone. Of course, that leads to some physical changes. You've got muscle growth, again, redistribution of the muscles. They get the voice deepening or cracking at first, and then deepening, the facial hair, and then eventually hair everywhere. They're going to have that growth spurt. For boys, it's a little bit later. Like the girls are often getting kind of tall, awkwardly 6th, 7th grade, and the boys are maybe a little later. And so the girls will be like taller when they start middle school, but by the end of middle school, the boys are taller. They get the acne. They might have more energy, less energy. I would say the fluctuations of hormones and the emotional development often leads to irritability. And there's that. All of a sudden, they're having nocturnal erections, daytime erections, interest in girls. That's a normal part of puberty, and then wanting to be independent. I got this, like, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. All right, so that's puberty in boys. Remember the window, it's big. So the variation between different children is kind of wide, meaning there's some kids in 5th grade, girls especially, might have their period. And then other ones are like me, and they're a freshman in high school before they have their period. So that's a pretty big range, and that can lead to a lot of comparison or like worry that you're not normal, because if there's one thing you want to be as a teenager, it's normal. You don't want to be any different than anyone else. You just want to be normal. So maybe a girl will look at the other girl who's totally flat chested and be like, what's wrong with me? Or, you know, the boys might have like if you have kids in sports in these ages, you just look out on the field and be like, is that kid even the right age because they're twice as big as my child or something. So these are normal variations that your pediatrician can help reassure you, but they cause stress. That's a good truth for all of us. Comparison causes stress, but especially in teenagers. So how do these hormones and this normal process that's variable lead to behavior changes? Well, lots of behavior changes. Little bit of neuroanatomy here. I have a picture, hopefully you can see on the screen, of the brain, and this is the adolescent brain we're talking about. In the middle, in the purple spot, in the very middle, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but the limbic system is kind of the emotional reward, dopamine, feel good, you know, light up when you're happy, when you're eating chocolate and having sex or whatever. That's your limbic system, and that develops before this cortex out here. So it kind of goes from back to front. And we're not talking about the cerebellum and stuff, which is like you could be basically almost brain dead and you're breathing and your heart's pumping. So no, this is part of the conscious brain, the reward and emotional system, but it develops more fully in all of us before the frontal lobe. So this is the part of us that's like, me, have sex now. And then the brain is like, maybe not a good idea. But it's very quiet in teenage years. So they're going to have strong emotions, more than they even know how to handle a lot of times, and be inclined to be more risk-taking and impulsive, because it is this frontal cortex, which, by the way, doesn't completely develop until age 26 in males, to downregulate the kind of just impulsive core drive of our brain to say, wait, hold on, think about that, wear the seatbelt, you know, maybe we should slow down here. So you could already probably imagine how that affects behavior, but we'll be more clear about it in a second. But the hormones fluctuate, as I mentioned, by the day, by the week, and they all amplify part of that limbic brain. So like maybe some feeling bad about not having the best clothes compared to other kids in school might have a certain flavor or feeling in 4th grade, but that is in way more intense in 9th grade. Like basically to the extent of, I am worthless because I don't have the best clothes, and I'm going to cry now for 2 hours because I don't have the right Converse. So it's amplified by the hormones and the situation and stuff. So they feel the highs higher, you know, they could be like blissfully happy, like my girls who are both teenagers are just like busy running around happy, and then at 10 o'clock they're just all of a sudden like, Mom, I need this, I need that, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm happy, I'm tired. And everything hits at once, and they feel it very intensely. Anyone else on here can maybe tell you that at 10 or 11 p.m. is when all of a sudden your teen wants to talk about all their problems, like when you're so tired. But teenagers need a lot of sleep. And so all of these things that can change with all of our days, sleep, not eating well, or eating well, having stress or situations, those worsen mood instability in anyone. But maybe it's more apparent in teenagers because they don't have as much emotional regulation tools. So back to this limbic system, the dopamine, it's highly addictive. It's why we do what we do, because it feels good, and we try to avoid things that feel bad. Pretty basic. And so we are motivated by dopamine, we are rewarded by dopamine. And so teens, like all of us, but more so, they crave new things, excitement, and especially approval from their peers. Those can be good if their peers are doing good, and that feature can be very bad if the peers are doing bad things that you don't want your child to do. But everybody's doing it. So these are the type of like recipe here for risk taking. And like most of us, encouragement or modeling of good behaviors, allowing natural consequences when possible, all these things work better than just criticism. Like, you're dumb, you made a bad choice, you're a bad person. So like when this may or may not be one of my children, but was caught shoplifting, I allowed natural consequences. I was like, let's get the cop in here. Let's talk to this child. Let's show them all of the negative consequences that result from this choice. I mean, not sheltering from any of that, but then encouraging any positive behaviors like is more effective than the criticism I have found for my patients and children. A little bit about sleep. Teenagers do need more sleep than the average younger child or adult, and they truly have a phase shift sleep disorder. So what that means is that their bodies naturally want to get up at 9 or 10 a.m. and go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, which is unfortunate that high school starts at 7 and goes till 3. And there have been some pretty good science studies and evidence to show that it would be better for teenagers to have a later start time. But I have yet to see very many school districts make this change. I'm usually told that it has to do with after school activities, busing, that kind of thing, which I get. But important to at least note that the biological clocks of teenagers are really set to need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, fall asleep later, and want to sleep in. So early start times can be harder, and it's probably more apparent in certain kids than others. But it's actually like melatonin in their brain changing to result in these changes. So just understanding that this is a biological thing. It's natural. Again, these hormones are pushing teens to look outward. So they're like, what are the other people doing? What is this boy in my class doing? What are my friends doing? And these hormones drive, I think it's the natural human or even mammal evolution of interest in peers, attraction to others, wanting to connect with other people, having a more of an awareness of what their own body looks like to themselves and others. So they're going to be, again, good and bad, to have an awareness of their body image. Maybe they'll wash their pits once in a while. Great. If they're obsessed with their body image and have an eating disorder, not so good. So all these things are happening, but we're trying to balance and regulate them, but they are normal for them to evolve about how they feel about themselves. And just being open and honest about their bodies and their changes and the wet dream they had and the period and the bleeding through their pants and just really whatever happens, like saying, oh yeah, that happens. Like that's probably happening to other people. And you can tell me about it and we'll figure it out together. It goes a long ways because in households that those topics are never discussed, I find that these poor kids really don't have a good reference of what to do when they struggle or things are not happening the way they think they should. And they're going to find some answers from someone else. All right. So after we've talked about now the hormones, what those are biologically doing, how that affects the behavior, what is like the typical developmental or emotional progression from a child to an adult? Well, as pediatricians, we usually divide it into 3 segments. We've got early, mid, and late adolescence. And those don't always happen at the ages I put on the screen, but those are the ranges and the typical. So about 10 to 13, usually there's some puberty changes starting. They maybe don't have much of a framework to manage it, but they're kind of like, oh, I have this blackhead. Like my 11-year-old boy now is like, Mom, I have a pimple on my forehead. He knows all about pimples because the older girls in high school are talking about it. But now he's like, but where did this come from? So they're a little more self-conscious about being different. So again, this is 5th, 6th, 7th grade. They're comparing themselves to others. They're wondering if they're normal. In middle adolescence, this is a tough time too because this risk-taking, the independence, they're really not equipped to be independent, to like work independently, provide for all their daily needs, but they want to be. They really want to be separate, and mom doesn't know anything, and their friends know everything. So they're developing or changing their identity. We see a lot of like gender identity or stuff like pop up around this time. And then just again, risk taking, which could result in unwanted occurrences like actual self-harm or substance use or unwanted pregnancies, that sort of thing. In late adolescence, luckily, the children develop a little more emotional regulation and they can plan for the future. And, hopefully they're thinking about moving out someday or learning some financial independence. So these are kind of the stages of development that we're looking for. And there's roller coasters in all of those categories. So these hormones developmentally change your body, like kind of rehashing what I said before, but they affect your height, of course, muscle distribution, fat, bone strength. Like all you have to do is look at like a high school football team and you're like, that must be a freshman, that must be a senior. Or at least if you don't know their age, you can tell like their developmental or pubertal stage based on the muscle bulk and stuff like that. And again, as they're growing, it affects their energy levels. Like we've all heard, they're in a growth spurt, they're exhausted, they're eating all the time or something. And importantly, even though you can't see it, the brain is developing a lot. Like the motor neurons, the emotional regulation, like I said, that limbic system is kind of firing, and then the frontal cortex learns like, oh, so yeah, just slamming on the brakes, and not looking where I was going or something. That didn't work out, or hopefully they learn in the car without serious damage because they ran into the curb or whatever. And then they're like, mental note, not do that again. So the brain is actually physically remodeling with the negative and positive feedback loops, and then the thinking patterns and the cognitive development, believe it or not, is occurring, whether or not it seems like they're learning. A little bit more about the way the brain works. So concrete thinking, if you think of like a toddler, like me, here, now, I want, it's very concrete. Like what you see in front of you is the only thing that exists. And then children will learn that their parent exists even though they can't see them. And then, thinking gets a lot more abstract as they get older. So during teen years is when really children can become aware of world events and how that might affect them. We've been talking a lot in my household about the hostages being released, about the world wars that are occurring. They might learn something in school history class and then all of a sudden be like, oh, is that kind of like when dad had to go to Iraq and what happened then in the war? And so this abstract thinking is like applying concepts and information to current or past events and being able to extrapolate it to other situations. And that's really critical because that allows our brains to reason, to plan, to consider consequences, and maybe, just maybe, someday they will filter out their impulse as a result or prior to the consequence hitting them. But they're still learning emotional growth, so they're going to make mistakes. So, maybe they're going to slip up and steal something again because they really, really wanted it and think that maybe this time they could avoid a consequence. And then have to be reminded that the consequence is still there and that the stealing is still stealing. And maybe they'll learn better the second or the third or the fourth time. But it's exhausting as a parent. And that emotional control lags behind physical growth. So you've seen children that they just look like an adult and then they talk or act or do something totally stupid and you're just like, whoa. So actually, you look like you're 20 and your brain is 14 still. And so understanding that their emotional maturity is going to come, but it's just not there. And it's critical to be understanding and less judgmental. It's hard because you just think, gosh, I've taught you better, and why would you do that thing that you knew shouldn't happen? But their judgment is not fully developed, so the hormones are pushing them to like try and just take that risk and like figure it out on their own. And so patience and guidance are essential, and that's from all aspects, right? Teachers, coaches, parents, of course, and pediatricians help us to realize like, okay, they're just working through it. So let's go through a couple specific ways that parents can help their teenagers, because if you're like me, you're just desperate for some options, and it doesn't matter how much I know, like I'm still learning every day because every kid is different. I always recommend that time with your child. So if you are always being really angry and judgmental and snappy, they're not going to approach you. So when you're driving them somewhere, because we have to drive our teens everywhere, staying approachable and calm, like when they say, yeah, so my friend Lily at school, she told me about this drug that she tried or whatever, and you're like, oh, tell me more, instead of like, drugs are bad, or jumping down on them. So being approachable, just like listening. I mean, maybe I'm extra good at it because I do it all day in the office. But if you listen more than you lecture at them, I have found they will talk to you, especially if it's after 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. And as anyone who works with any people in this department will know, validating feelings is so important. It does not matter if you think it is the dumbest topic or the silliest thing that they're worried about. You can still always say, like, it sounds like that's hard for you, or I could see how that would be stressful, and then be quiet and then see what they say. And it's amazing because, and how much more does that open up the communication instead of shutting them down and saying, like, well, that's dumb, or you shouldn't worry about that, or it won't even matter in a year, but it matters now. So you just say, oh, I can see that. That's really worrying you. What are you thinking about doing next, etc. So create a safe space, open dialogue, validate feelings. And then as possible, we try to build their healthy habits. We know they need sleep. We, in my house, take away phones. We turn off, it has been quite an IT degree warranting level of activity for me to try to remove devices and electronics from children. It is not easy these days, but at least trying. I just learned I have to physically remove the device because they always find a way to get online. And often taking away the device is what is needed for them to actually sleep, because otherwise it is so addictive and it is so enticing that there's something going on that they need to be a part of. If it's in their room, they just can't resist. Family meals has been highly linked to all sorts of really good outcomes. So literally just eating with your family, even if it's not the best thing, of course, real balanced meal is better, limiting caffeine, energy drinks, and then just consistency. We all like routine and knowing what to expect and knowing that there'll be a time in a day, or especially in a week at least, that you can be with your family and kind of like ask questions or talk about the family goals or what's on the schedule is very comforting. Routine and consistency reduces mood swings, because when toddlers or teens or adults, all of us know what to expect, we feel calmer. And this is the hardest thing as a parent, is to just guide them, but not control them. And in my opinion, that starts very early. Try to force feed a 2-year-old and see how that goes. Not well. Children are little, they're people and they have souls. And I think we should respect them. And we have to give boundaries and natural consequences, but we also need to give choices whenever possible and respect their choices. And usually they'll respect you more in response than power struggles. Teenagers especially, they need autonomy, but then a safety net, right? So like when I set up screen time guidelines for my children, as they go through the years, they'll have like 30 minutes of Instagram. And then if they do well with that challenge, how they manage it and like the rules, then they might have more. And they're gradually getting like more apps and more time and more autonomy as they get older. And then it's cut stringently back when they screw up, or I should say, have an experience that teaches them that they need to change their behavior. And then we try again to ramp it back up. So it's autonomy, but a safety net, as opposed to a policy where someone would say, okay, 0 phones ever. I mean, do you think your child is going to magically know how to use a phone then at 18, or regulate an app or social media if they've never practiced? I doubt it. So it's harder parenting than just an absolute no or yes, or let me make you do this. But in the end, it develops more resilient and self-reliant young adults. And that's what we really want, is responsibility and introspection. And similarly, when our kids are having these really strong emotions, it's overwhelming to them, just like it's overwhelming to us. And so it can be really helpful just to normalize that, like just like a toddler who's throwing a tantrum, to say, it seems like you're really angry. I'm just going to let you work through that, or I'll be here for when you feel better. And you just kind of wait for that to resolve, instead of like, how could you be so angry? Or why are you yelling when it's not even important, or something? So just normalizing and validating that they're having a mood. And as you can see on the slide, there's so many moods they can have, and so many facial expressions, and so many like eye rolls. And it's like, oh, I can see that frustrates you, or you felt that really strongly, and that and that's affecting how you're feeling or something. Anyway, just teaching coping skills, when they're ready. So like you might have to let them have that mood and validate it and monitor it. And then when they're in a more receptive state, then they might be able to get those coping skills of like, what I've found helps me when I'm really frustrated with someone at work is I take a break and I go into the bathroom and I do whatever. And maybe you could try that at school, or like sometimes I write down all the things that I wanted to say to my ex-boyfriend or this person that really, really hurt me. And I may or may not share it, but like writing it down helps me. And then my daughter's like, oh, maybe I'll try that. And I'm a big fan of getting professional help when needed. There's a reason that people have skilled therapy practices and degrees and are educated in ways to guide us and coach us through these things. Like just like you wouldn't think you could be a great athlete without having a coach in football. You're not just going to like YouTube it. I mean, same thing with therapy. Like you need a coach or a skilled person sometimes to really help us through these really difficult experiences parenting or as a child. So talking about your emotions is good. Also, talking about sex, puberty, bodies, penises, vaginas. They're just body parts. I was the one who had the kid in nursery at church, and she's just like, vagina, 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 because she loved to say the word vagina. And I was like, well, it is an appropriate term, so whatever. So it's just factual, calm, correct terms for everything that happens with our bodies, helps them feel more comfortable in my experience. So you're not being offensive, you're just being factual, and you're just talking to them about what happens. I think it's appropriate at the earliest of ages, and for sure in your preteen years, to talk about boundaries with your private parts and what happens when someone might want to touch, the areas under your underwear and what you might do and why that's not okay. And that feeling private and wanting to cover that up for people is normal. And other people should respect that. And if you don't talk to them about their bodies and talk about, the concerns and the feelings that they have, someone else will. And it may not be someone that shares the values that you do or really wants the best for your teen. So I cannot tell you enough about how important it is just to talk about all the things. And if you remember that impulsive and limbic system and the sexual hormones that are going, that is why kids will sometimes have sexual relations way before that they're ready, emotionally, and maybe do things that they would regret. And so that's why things like birth control and protecting them against like human papillomavirus or cervical cancer with the vaccine at age 11 is smart, because in the moment and when they're in that rush of teenage, they're not able to invoke their frontal brain and say like, oh yeah, maybe I should just put that condom on. Like, no, it already happened. Should have, had that protection in place before and that conversation before. All right, just a few more slides. We're going to talk about teachers. I don't know if there's teachers on this call, but hopefully there is some. I'm in love with my kids' teachers. I mean, I'm just really grateful to them for the things that they've done. But teachers are experiencing children with a lot of behavioral and emotional dysregulation at all ages now. I'm hearing from my patients who are teachers, and they have a hard job. But even just for your average teenager, for a teacher realizing the things that I was saying, like the child's going to have like fluctuating attention, maybe be tired in the mornings. They're going to have a meltdown over something that you don't understand as a teacher, why they're having a meltdown, but just avoiding the shame and allowing them a space to experience that, but then also saying, well, because you were having that meltdown, you missed this assignment, we're going to have to make this up, so consequences. They may need movement breaks. They may need a kind of a collaboration type of situation with the child's coach or their parent or someone that they do listen to. More so if you're trying to invoke some sort of response. And then the same strategy of positive reinforcement that seems to work better with most of us, honestly, than not, is just the positive reinforcement of like telling a child maybe, or a teen, the way you wrote down that assignment so you wouldn't forget was really good. Like if you tried that every day, I bet you wouldn't forget your math so often like you did before or something. And anything to have positive reinforcement. Just like find anything you can about your child that was positive and good, and just say that about 10 times, instead of pointing out the one thing they did wrong. I feel like our schools I'm in Jordan School District, have improved a lot with how they manage mental health. They all have psychologists now. Almost universally, my interactions with school officials and psychologists for my children, for my patients, has been positive. I really just think they're trying really hard, and the teachers are good. They're just probably overstressed and overworked, but they're trying to do what I'm asking, is recognizing the signs of distress. If a child withdraws from activities, sudden, like a big change in their grades, irritability, I always recommend as a pediatrician, and parents can tell them, like, to talk to their counselor at school if they don't want to talk to their parent. Again, like a coach, or just any trusted adult relationship can help them. And then when teachers reach out to parents, it's not always helpful if the parents are just as unglued as the child, but in most cases, parents are a little more emotionally regulated than their teen. And then communicating with them about developing a plan can be helpful. And despite all those efforts, there's just times to involve a pediatrician, and that's where I come in. So definitely, if a girl before 8 has signs of puberty, they should be seen by a pediatrician. If they're 13 and they have not even started those signs of puberty, they should be seen. And for boys, those ages are 9 and 14. So if you have a boy at 9, no underarm hair, no changes in the size of the penis or the testicles at all, it's like, maybe, sorry, if it's before 9, then it's abnormal. And if it's 14 and they haven't had the changes I just said, like the hair growth, then that would be abnormal, because they should be having some of those before they go after 14. So also, people ask me a lot about irregular periods. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Irregular periods are totally normal, at least for 2 years. I mean, if it's 2 full years of menstruating for a child, or girl, I should say, and then they have still very irregular, large gaps in their period, that would be good to talk to a pediatrician. But before that, they're usually going to say, hey, if you have like 6-ish a year, we're fine. Don't worry that they're irregular. I'm constantly seeing kids in social situations and thinking, oh my gosh, I wish they could see a doctor for their severe acne, because there's so many treatments we can do and avoid the scarring and the horrible disfigurement and really sad emotional trauma of having bad acne. So you should talk to your doctor if your child has bad acne, meaning like big pustules, scarring on the neck, like infected. If any body changes really that seem excessive or drawing attention to the child in a negative way and worrying them, weight loss that is rapidly up or down, that's warrants talking to a doctor. And then anything that would indicate which is a broad spectrum, but thyroid or other hormone imbalance where you just think, gosh, I think something's not right, check with your pediatrician. You should be seeing them every year anyway. And this is for all of you that work with teens, or even adults. If someone is just always sad, or they're newly sad, they seem excessively anxious, they're irritable, there's changes that are concerning about their emotion or behavior, contacting some sort of mental health professional, sorry, I switched again, is recommended, especially anyone who even talks or mentions harming themselves, or that life isn't worth living, or they might as well be gone, or no one will miss them if they are. Those are some passive kind of suicidal sentiments that should be taken seriously. It is absolutely a myth that talking about suicide makes people suicide. It's the opposite. So I have no problem just talking to people, but I have practice doing it. So if you are getting the flavor from someone and you're not able to talk to them, find someone who can talk to them about the fact that they feel that their hopeless life is not worth living. And definitely anyone with substance abuse, because when you mix mental health and substance abuse, and they do often go together, poor choices, all of these things, it can be deadly, and it can accelerate. So that would be a time to consult a professional. So some key takeaways before we wrap up, and if there'll be questions, I hope, is just that, yes, teenagers have hormones. but it's not the whole story, because we all somehow get through puberty, and some of us do better than others. Some children, it's just, there's a whole collection of factors, right, that affect the behavior and the development and the independence that we're looking for. And teenagers, they just need understanding and structure. Someone has to be the parent. They can have other friends, but they need a parent to provide that structure, the consequences, the boundaries, and the connection. And definitely parents and teachers and all adults in a teenager's life can play a vital role in guiding them safely to adulthood. So don't hesitate to reach out. Your pediatrician and probably other specialists are there to help you, and that includes myself. I do serve members in my practice. I don't have as many patients as I used to in the insurance system, which is a huge blessing and allows me to really give personalized care. Direct care is really the best thing that I've ever, the best way to practice medicine. I'll just say I'll never go back, because now I just have so much more autonomy and direct relationship with my patients, and I do what's right by them, and I'm not dictated by what the insurance says. And for just about $100 a month, which is what everyone should be able to have, is just a relationship with their primary care physician that they trust and care about, and that they know they could talk to about the scary thing that their child did or said or something, and where to proceed. So hopefully all of you have that. And I think I'm gonna exit from this screen so I can see if there's questions, or should I stop sharing, Sabrina, or what should I do?
No, you're good. If anybody has questions, feel free to send them in the chat. If not, then we can close out.
A little early, but hopefully that was helpful to you all. But yeah.
All right. I'm not seeing anything come through, so we'll go ahead and end here. And if anybody would like to contact Dr. Tipton,
Thank you.
how to get in touch with me.
Yeah, or my email address is right there on the screen, and Blossom Health is in West Jordan, and the hospital campus at Jordan Valley, Common Spirit, Holy Cross, Jordan Valley, all those words in the 90th and Bangerter. So yeah, good luck. We all need it.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining.